Renekton was born to fight. From a young age he was constantly getting into vicious brawls. He had no fear, and was able to hold his own against much older children. It was often pride that led to these confrontations, as Renekton was unable to back down, or let any insult pass. Nasu soon moved away, having been chosen to join the elite Collegium of the Sun. Fearing Renekton's violent nature would see him imprisoned or in an early grave, Nasu's helped him enlist in the Shurima army. Officially, Renekton was too young for this duty, but his older brother's influence smoothed away this detail. The discipline and regimentation of the army was a blessing for Renekton. Within a few years, he rose to become one of Shurima's most feared and capable war captains. He garnered a reputation for ferocity and toughness, but also for honor and bravery. Nasus became a decorated general, and the two of them served in a number of campaigns together, remaining very close despite their inherent differences and frequent disagreements. Nasu's skill lay in strategy, logistics, and history. Renekton's lay in battle. Nasus planned the wars, and Renekton won them. Renekton served on the front lines for decades, and never lost a battle. His presence was inspiring to those fighting alongside him, and terrifying to his enemies. And such was his reputation that some wars were won without a sword even being lifted, enemy nations surrendering as soon as they heard Renekton was marching on them. When word reached him that his brother was close to death, he raced back to the capital to find Nasus, a pale shadow of his former self. The sickness was incurable. Nevertheless, Nasus's greatness was recognized by one and all. As well as being a highly decorated general, he curated the great library of Shurima, and penned many of the finest literary works in the empire. The priesthood proclaimed it to be the sun's will that he undertake the ascension ritual. The whole city gathered to witness the holy rite, but the tragic illness had taken a terrible toll, and Nasus no longer had the strength to scale the stairs to the ascension dais. In the ultimate act of self-sacrifice and love, Renekton lifted his brother in his arms, and climbed the final steps, fully expecting to be obliterated in the process by the holy energies of the sun disk. He deemed his sacrifice a small thing to ensure that his brother would live on. He was just a warrior, after all, albeit a talented one, while his brother was a peerless scholar, thinker, and general. Renekton was not destroyed, however. Beneath the blinding radiance of the sun disk, both brothers were raised up and remade. When the light faded, two mighty ascended beings stood before the onlookers, Nasus in his lean, jackal-headed body, and Renekton in his immense, crocodilian form. He led the soldiers of Shurima to many bloody victories, neither giving nor expecting mercy. His legend spread far beyond the borders of the empire, and it was his enemies that gave him the name Butcher of the Sands, a title he embraced. During the reign of the Emperor Azire, word arrived that a magical being of fire had escaped the magical sarcophagus that bound it in its underground prison. Renekton and his brother Nasus set forth to recapture this legendary foe. While they were absent, the young emperor, guided by the manipulations of his magus, Zeroth, attempted to join their ranks and become one of the ascended. The results were catastrophic. Renekton and Nasus were a day's ride from the capital, but even so, they felt the shockwave as the ascension ritual went awry. Knowing that something terrible had come to pass, they raced back to find the glorious city in ruins. Azire had been killed, along with most of the city's populace, and the great sun disk was falling, drained of all its power. At the epicenter of the ruin, they encountered Zeroth, now a being of pure, malevolent power. The brothers sought to bind Zeroth in the magical sarcophagus that had held the ancient being of fire. For a day and a night they battled, but the magus was powerful, and would not be held. He shattered the sarcophagus, and assailed them with spells fueled by the power of Sun Disk, which crashed to the ground as they fought. Knowing that they could not destroy Zeroth, Renekton finally wrestled him into the depthless tomb of the emperors, and bade his brother seal them inside forever. Knowing there was no other way to stop Zeroth, Nasus reluctantly did as his brother ordered. As Renekton and Zeroth fell into darkness, Nasu sealed the tomb for all eternity. In the darkness, Zeroth and Renekton continued their battle. For uncounted years they fought, as the once great civilization of Shurima collapsed to dust in the world above. Zeroth whispered poison in Renekton's ear, and gradually, as the centuries rolled on, his viperous words and the ever-present darkness took its toll. The Magus implanted the notion in Renekton's mind that Nasus had sealed him in on purpose, jealous of his success, and unwilling to share his ascension. Piece by piece, Renekton's sanity cracked. Zeroth drove a wedge into these cracks, corrupting his mind and twisting his perception of what was real and what was imagined. Thousands of years later, the tomb of the emperors was opened by the mercenary Sivir, freeing Renekton and Zeroth. Renekton roared his fury and thundered out into the Shurima desert, sniffing the air for the scent of his brother. Renekton now roams the deserts, seeking the death of Nasus, the traitor he believes left him to die. His grip on reality is tenuous at best. And while there are moments when he resembles the proud, honorable hero of the past, much of the time he is little more than a devolved hate-maddened beast, driven on by the thirst for blood and vengeance.
בין השפיות לשינה, בין הילדות לזקנה, אומרים שיש עוד תקווה, קוראים לזה אהבה, ומחכים לבואה. בין האתמול לעתיד, בין האוצר לתחתית, אומרים שיש עוד תקווה, קוראים לזה אהבה, ומחכים לבואה.